Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I am here with Susan. Hello, Susan.
Hello there.
And I think I'm going to get to stop doing the podcast trope.
What does that mean?
There's like there's a podcast trope where where you always say like as always or something. I did that a while ago and like I was like totally my thing, and now I feel like every podcast does that.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Every podcast does what?
They're like, oh, and with me as always is like blah 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 blah.
Didn't you just say that?
Well, I'm gonna try and move away from it. The problem is that it's so perfect.
Well, what are you gonna say instead?
I don't know. That's the problem. There's like it's such a perfect introduction, and it so encompasses everything. It's just very difficult.
Then what's wrong with it? It's trite. Everybody's doing it.
Is that what trite means?
I don't know what trope means. But yeah, that's what trite means. I think that's what trite means.
Well, I'm not an English major, so don't ask me.
Well, I'm not an English major either. So don't ask me. Well, that was an interesting start to our podcast episode today, Guthrie.
Good morning, everyone.
Well, they might be listening to it at night. Hey, you know what?
Good evening.
It's April 11th, 2017. And when I woke up today, there was snow on my car.
Isn't that amazing?
No, it's normal. I live in Wisconsin.
Well, you do live in Siberia, so...
No, I live in Wisconsin,
Oh,
and that's what happens in Wisconsin in the spring, which isn't really spring. Anyway, it has melted since then.
You know where there's not snow?
Chicago?
No, well, that's, yes, but also San Francisco.
Where we just were.
By way of a segue.
So Guthrie and I, we just got back from San Francisco. When we were at the Habit Summit, where we taught 2 half-day workshops, and then I gave a keynote, yes. And we thought we'd talk about that today, about the Habit Summit, about who was there, some of the things we heard that we thought were interesting.
Yes, so the Habit Summit is basically the baby of a man named Nir Eyal. Did I pronounce his name correctly?
No, you did not.
Please correct me.
It's Nir Eyal.
Eyal.
Although it's kind of spelled Eyal, but he pronounces it Eyal.
Yes, thank you. And so he's a Stanford professor who has written a number of books, and he's rather famous.
Is he a Stanford professor? I don't think so.
Okay, well, you how about, because you know Nir, I mean, I know Nir, but you, know Nir. So you talk about Nir. I'm going to go look to see if he's a Stanford
You
professor.
go look him up. So Nir Eyal is a wonderful author. He wrote the book Hooked, and he's all about behavior design. And he has put on the Habit Summit. I believe this was the 4th year of the Habit Summit. And it's a great conference if you're looking for a conference to go to. He had 1 day of half-day workshops. I taught one and he taught one, and then we swapped out. So we taught them twice in 1 day. And then he has a whole bunch of speakers for a day. So there were, I don't know, maybe like 300, 400 people in attendance. I think he was pretty much sold out. And...
Just by the way.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. You looked
I'm
up.
right. I'm sorry. I'm just right. He went to Stanford, and he's also taught various classes at Stanford.
Oh,
Though
yeah.
I don't. He's not a full-time Stanford professor.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant. Yes.
Yeah. I apologize, but I do remember him saying, talking about at his class at Stanford. So.
And we had him on a podcast episode. Do you remember that?
Yes, everyone likes Nir. Nir's great.
Yeah, so he's a great speaker too. Anyway, I thought we'd talk about some of the speakers. So, Guthrie, I'll put you on the spot here. Were there any speakers that, particularly that were like your favorites?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I didn't mean that, but that's very sweet. Besides me, the other speakers.
Yeah. Well, so so the talk was kind of it was in TED Talk format. So each speaker had about half an hour.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard, especially because I mean, geez, I've done so much research in this field. You know.
You mean behavioral economics?
Yes.
And behavioral design, yeah.
Yes. I've done so much, and you have too. So it's tough in 30 minutes to hear something new.
That's true. Although I did hear a few new things. Did you hear anything that was new?
Oh yeah, I heard a lot of new things. I'm just in general, you know,
Yeah.
it's like just because there are some overarching points.
Yeah. And you're right. When you're listening to talks that are 20 or 30 minutes long, they tend to be more at a slightly higher level. And so you are likely to hear things you already know. If it's an hour-long talk, people are often getting into details that might be new. Although I did hear new things, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I heard lots of new things.
Yeah.
Just because it is a field in which I am very well versed.
Yeah.
So what would be like shocking research to some would make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I am a biased observer. I've also heard your talk
too many times. Yeah.
So yes. So with all that said, basically, I liked Gad. Everyone liked Gad.
Yeah. This is and I don't know if we're pronouncing his name right, so I apologize in advance to him. But this is a professor. Where is he, professor? Where does he teach? I'm trying to remember.
I think he's in Canada.
His name is Gad Saad. His last name is Saad. And he wrote a book called The Consuming Instinct. And his talk the title is The Evolutionary and Biological Forces That Shape Consumer Behavior. And I agree that a lot of what he said was not necessarily new, but he was such a good speaker, very funny. I mean, yeah, I have to say, I'm like...
he was talking about sex. It was it was very popular. He was talking about sex a lot.
He was talking about attraction.
Okay, sure.
Do
you want to put it?
I am like... I'm like the worst person as an audience member. Like, you don't want me in the audience.
No, you really don't.
I'm restless. I'm critical. I'm easily bored. And so the fact that he made me laugh out loud several times, that is pretty impressive. So I just thought he was very good. Anything from his talk that you want to mention that you thought was interesting?
No. No, if there's anything in particular you had advice.
I will mention something. So he was talking about research that I believe he did. I think it was his own research.
Yeah, he has a lot of his own research.
And he was talking about online dating sites, and you put up your profile, and about he had done these experiments with online profiles, and he would take a guy. And he would either change the background of the apartment that the guy was standing in. Sometimes the picture showed the guy standing in an apartment that looked kind of not that great. And sometimes it was like a really high-end, fancy, furnishings and a view of, downtown LA or something with the lights. Or he'd manipulate the car. So the guy would be standing next to a Porsche versus next to an old Honda, and he'd be saying in the profile how much he loved his old Honda or how much he loved his Porsche. And in both instances, either with the apartment or the car, when women were asked to rate their memory of how tall he was, the guy got taller or shorter depending on if he was in a high-end apartment or had a Porsche. He got taller, and if he was in a low-end apartment,
I'm not even sure it was their memory.
Oh, you mean as they were looking? Oh, you're right.
I think they just asked him to estimate height.
He asked him to estimate height. Height wasn't part of the profile. Yeah, and I just thought that was really
Yes. Also
really
better
funny.
looking as well for the same,
They
literally
rated
the
him
same picture.
Same picture, but he was better looking if he had the Porsche or it was in the nice
I
apartment.
have one thing, and we'll talk about this at some point in this podcast. One thing though, I'm slightly. I think there might be some generational stuff going on. You just might have to tweak it a little.
Say more.
Well, obviously, look, there's obviously some sort of. There are things you can put in a picture that will make the guy appear more attractive, taller, better, blah blah blah, due to his societal thing.
Status,
Yeah. And I think obviously like in front of a rich car is nice, but I think that might be kind of a generational thing at some point. I think you eventually get a point, at least with younger people, where standing in front of a Porsche is kind of a dick move.
Yeah,
and maybe you just switch out the Porsche for like a Tesla or something. And
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
I'm just there are. I feel like just having a very powerful, loud red car may not be the calling card that it was, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will forever be true.
I don't know. That would be a good experiment to do. And I think he did say that the research was from a couple years ago.
Oh, I know the research wasn't that old, but I don't, who knows
Yeah,
what
it might be different. But so what constitutes status might change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he would say, yeah, but the point is that whatever is considered high status makes the guy,
for sure. Yes.
appear taller.
And I would completely agree.
Yeah, so we both liked Gad Saad, Saad, and that was interesting. Should I talk? So you brought up Gad. Should I bring up someone else who I thought was interesting?
Go for it.
Okay. So the next speaker I want to talk about was Gabe. Gabe, again, I'm really bad with the names. Zicherman, Zichermann. Do you remember Gabe?
Not by name. You got to tell me.
Oh, he had this, I think he was the last speaker.
Oh, okay. Yes,
and he
Gabe.
has the startup website Onward.
Gabe, yes, Gabe was fun. He was the last speaker after a long day, and I think the crowd really liked him. He swore a lot, and he was, again, also talking about sex. So very, very much things to keep the audience.
So here is the lesson. If you want to be a really popular speaker and get to close conferences, you should talk about sex, and you should drop a lot of F-bombs, right?
And but it's really just the energy that he brought.
Yeah, he was very good speaker.
It's like I'm sure you've been to concerts, and like there are, right, the headliner is always the closing act, right? You have the openers, and they're fine, but then you get, hey, I have a question.
What?
When did the whole like openers and then a headliner? When did that start?
You mean at conferences?
I'm talking about concerts, music concerts.
Oh.
Like that format where it's been like two openers for an hour and then then the headliner for an hour and a half. Like when did that, how far back does that go?
Oh, that goes really far back. I mean, it goes at least as far as vaudeville. And it might
weird.
go back to, Shakespeare or something.
It's so strange.
No, it's not. It makes sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Why would that, out of all the things and formats that have changed over years, it's seemingly arbitrary setup when it comes to concerts. It's just like a staple and has never been touched. It's very weird.
You got to warm up the crowd, and you have to keep them in their seats waiting for the headliner. Anyway.
Why?
What?
For example, in sports, there's no
There's just the main event.
Yeah, why isn't there just a main event? I don't understand why you need. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just strange that this is that like only for music shows is this a thing. Like when you go to see Hamilton on Broadway, there's not like two acts like like a warm up thing.
That's true.
You know, it's very weird. It's very weird. So, anyways, that's an interesting thought.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe because they charge too much for to see the big band, and the big band only plays for like an hour, so they have to do something else. I don't know.
It's probably true.
And they have to warm up the crowd.
But maybe I don't. But maybe I don't want. I mean, I can understand why it would work, but I can also understand like why it wouldn't work. You know, like anyways. So,
Gabe.
Okay, so sometimes you have the openers and it's fine, and then like the band you came to see it like comes on stage, and like some bands they kind of do it and they're good, and some bands they come out and they just bring the energy.
Yeah.
Like the crowd, they've been standing around for 2 hours. They've gone through the openers. The openers were okay. Maybe one of them you liked, and then you like stand around for a bunch more minutes. You're like, oh my god. And then the band, the main show comes on stage, and they're just like ready to go. And you're like, all right, okay, cool. And so he being the last guy of the day, he was basically jumping around on stage. He was just so.
He was pretty high energy, and it was. I mean, he also had an interesting topic, and he has this app. I guess you'd call it an app, software program called Onward. Just started, right?
No, I didn't.
But the website's there, and is it on? I know it's called Onward. How do you know the URL to give to our listeners?
No, I don't.
Do you want me to look it up?
If you'd like.
Okay, I want to look it up. You can hear me typing. So, what Onward does is, boy, how are we going to find it? Onward. I'll type in Gabe's name along with it. There we go. Here we go. So, yeah, I was at this website. Why I can't find it. Here it is. It's called onward.org. That's why I couldn't find it. And it has a tagline, Achieve Tech Life Balance. So, and that has another tagline.
Wait. Before we do this, can we actually talk a little bit about Near?
Sure.
Because we really glossed over it, and I think that's very important.
Well, I was going to come back to Near, but yeah, I see what you're saying. In order to talk about Onward, you kind of have to talk about Near and the whole habit idea and hook.
Yeah,
idea.
and where Near's coming from, and
all
yeah,
right,
and his
all right, let's back it up.
Because
when we had when we had Near on, I think he talked a little bit about his.
Yeah, you need to go. I told you need to go re-listen to that episode where we came up with solutions to have for Facebook ethics.
I know.
When we were at the conference, we basically did the same thing all over again, and then and I was like, yeah, we already did this already, and you were like, what?
All right, let's back it way up. So first we're going to talk about Near, then we're going to talk about Gabe. All right, so Nir Eyal wrote a book called Hooked. And it's a very good book, by the way. If you haven't read it, you guys might want to check it out. And it's Nir's take on how to design an app or software that is, he might say like, habit forming, or I might say engaging. And it draws on the science of habit formation and other things. And he wrote that book, and he's given a lot of talks about how to design products that people want to use and want to come back and do again and again. And when we had Nir on our episode, we talked about that, and then we got off on this tangent, and we talked a lot about ethics. Because if you're going to talk about, designing so that people want to use your product or people become hooked on your product, you're going to eventually end up talking about ethics, which we sometimes do. And we've gotten to a long ethics talk on that. We also had Blay Whitby on a different episode talking about ethics as well, if you recall. And interestingly, Nir has an idea, and when he gave his keynote at the Habit Summit last week, his keynote was about kind of the opposite of hooked, or as he would say, unhooked. How do you become less addicted to technology? And there was also, in his talk and in several of the talks, a whole conversation about even the use of the term addicted, right? Because can we really say that people are addicted to technology? Is that the same as being addicted to gambling or alcohol or drugs? And there was a discussion of that. I don't know if I'd say there's consensus.
Can we actually talk just very, 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 very briefly about addiction?
Yeah.
So just to clear the record, you can be addicted to anything, but there are physiological. Maybe that's not the right word. There are addictions that are basically encouraged biologically, and then there are kind of psychological
there's
cycles.
Physical dependence is a different thing.
So for
psychologically,
right. So cigarettes is the classic version. Your body naturally produces nicotine. Or the receptors, whatever. I'm not exactly sure the pathway, but it's basically your body needs nicotine and makes it naturally. When you smoke, nicotine enters your bloodstream, goes into your brain, and satisfies those receptors. It triggers those receptors. So then your body doesn't make as much nicotine as it normally would, or whatever the chemical is that triggers those receptors. And then when you don't smoke, your body is like, oh my God, we need this. We need to ingest this because we're not making as much as we usually do, giving you a craving. So there's like a biological cycle. And of course, something like heroin is obviously heroin has like a 90%, like a 98% addictive rate or something crazy.
So there are substances that you get a physical biological dependence upon. And then there's things, actions, activities that you get a psychological dependence. You can still get brain chemicals released with them, gambling, sex. So it's
usually tied to something that you find pleasurable.
So you've got the reward centers responding, and that's real. It's not not like it's not real, and the brain does change because of the addiction, but it's not the same as a physical dependence. So
there is some dispute as to the not the realness, but I guess it's kind of the how if that's addiction, or if there needs to be two different words for it, right? One being like physical, like addiction and dependence, or there's like, you're right, because they're different neurological effects that manifest.
And there's disagreement about what's addictive and what's not, and whether you should use that term when you're talking about if it's not a physical dependence, or should you use that term if it's not even a psychological dependence. So if people say I'm addicted to using Twitter or Snapchat or
well,
Facebook.
And I think, and no more is it more powerful than so for example, if you look at so people can, I think generally people accept that you can become addicted to gambling. There is like, people understand that there is a category of people in this world who just to very much a detriment of himself. And Gabe had a whole thing about, you know, what addiction means and blah blah blah. Like what's the definition, and that's a whole thing. But there's so I think people are pretty much on board with that. I think people would say the one that people really fight over is porn addiction. Because a lot of people just do not see that as a real thing. That there's a definitely a split with some people saying, yes, this is a real thing, or no, this is just like this like you just can't become addicted to porn. This is just like, you just want to watch porn. Whereas if you look at gambling, and then slightly in the more of a tech space, if you look at like people who play like Game of War a ton, you know, people who are you can potentially become addicted to certain video games. I think that's probably pretty real.
So I mean, I think that both Nir, I think you can tell me if you don't agree, but I think both Nir and Gabe wanted to talk about it not necessarily as addiction, but in terms of, you know, are you this term that Gabe has at the Onward site, tech life balance, you know, are you spending your time, are you engaging in behaviors that you feel are not in your best interest? Are you spending too much time doing, and for Gabe, it's too much time doing something online that, and you wish you did it less. And so this is, you know, fits in with this whole idea of a habit, right? So that if we don't call it an addiction, we can certainly call these things habits. And I think many people listening have had the experience of, you know, you get up in the morning and you check your email, and you know, at night before you go to bed, you check this and that, and it just becomes a habit. You just do it. And you may not realize that you're doing it. You may not realize how much time you're spending. And this was a big, interestingly, you know, at the Habit Summit, which you would think that most of the conversation would be about how to get people hooked on your apps and products, which I think has been a lot of the conversation in the past summits, and was for part of this one. And I don't know, because this is the first one I've been to. But a lot of the conversation this time, several of the speakers, either their entire talk or part of their talk, was about how to, as Nir would say, get unhooked. So Gabe has this product that he put together. I guess, I don't know, algorithms and bots and other things. And basically what you do with the product is you give it permission to track your usage of particular apps and software, is my understanding. Now, I haven't tried it, but I think you can tell it what to track, like track my use of Facebook, track my use of porn, track my use of particular websites and apps and products. And so it will then track how much. So first of all, it'll track how often you use those products and how long you're on. And then it gives you notifications. It coaches you through, to let you, in addition to getting a readout, how long was I on Facebook, how many times did I do it, it'll catch you before you go on. And it can monitor somewhat your, it'll ask you, how are you feeling? And if you say you're feeling anxious, it'll, coach you to not go online, because that's when you tend to go online and do XYZs when you're anxious. So it's supposed to help you change your habits around using particular technology. And the thing he talked about in his talk was about porn. But that's not the only thing that you can use it for. So, it's to me, it's interesting that now first we create all these products that everybody wants to use, and now we start creating products to get us to stop using the products that we're using. It's an interesting idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that came up, and we talked about this I think on the plane flying back to the Midwest, about also this idea that that people feel like for work they have to be available like day and night.
Yeah.
And do you remember which speaker it was that gave I think it was one of the women.
Yeah, it was definitely one of them. It was early.
Do you remember who it was that talked about the fact that some companies, see, this is how well I was paying attention.
There were a bunch of speakers. And you were worried about speaking yourself.
Yeah, I remembered more about the speakers that came after me than the people that came before me, because my whole chemical thing going on in my brain is different when I have to speak. Anyway, somebody talked about how there was some company that, from the leadership on the top, they decided to do an experiment. And the experiment was that one night a week, it was okay to not check your work email and do work texts and things like that. One night a week. And that was like a big deal. It was a big deal that the leadership at the company would let everyone know that one night a week. They even had a line, and they were allowed to remind each other. And I was shocked that this was.
Now
a big
hold
deal.
on. What? How many nights a week do you work?
I do. I work a lot, and I check and any of our customers that are out there listening will know that they sometimes get an email from me at midnight and 1 a.m. and so I do, but I own my own company, and I am, maybe I'm just like everybody else, but I don't know. It's just surprised, but I don't every night, and it's certainly okay to not do it. And I don't think I force you to do it. Do you feel like if you're not connected on a particular night that you're going to be in trouble at work, or you don't feel that?
No, I don't.
Because you work with me and we have our company. But I think I do remember before I had this particular incarnation of my business and I was working for someone else, I do remember feeling that I had to be, available at 24 hours a day. So I understand that. But I guess I didn't realize it had gone as far as it's gone as far as it has, where people feel like it's not okay. In some countries, I believe France, it's literally illegal to require that people be available after hours.
Yeah, sure.
And in America, I guess it's normal. But something about that conversation and that that whole thing about this amazing company that was doing one night a week made me realize how much this has been. This is now entrenched in the U.S.
Yeah, it really is. It
and
really is.
I guess I didn't realize it was that common. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think I think if you want to work and for whatever reason, or you have to work for a particular week, but for it to be like all the time, yeah. Just if we had to pay people by the hour, it would stop immediately.
Yeah.
Because the employers wouldn't want to pay
Well, that
for
was
it.
actually that was one of the Obama rules and regs, was that if you were a salaried employee, you got overtime.
Yeah.
Because essentially, the way it works, honestly, if you actually calculate out the hours, people, who are working these salaried positions, you're essentially working for like, $10 an hour or whatever, right? Because it's basically, the argument goes, is that especially for younger people who are getting jobs out of college, they give them a, quote, salaried position, unquote, and then it's basically just a way for them to get them to work for a ton without having to pay overtime.
Yeah, well, Near said what he calculated, and he was making as much as he did, like, in summers in college, working at the local taco place or something, right?
Was it a taco? What was it?
Something
was
like
it a
that.
taco place? I think it actually might have been a taco place. Yeah, so it's like, I mean, obviously, obviously it's a problem.
Yeah, so that was Gabe's talk was interesting. So I have a question. Would you ever use a software like Onward?
I mean, probably not. I have the mental fortitude of a ninja.
What does that mean? You mean you what do you mean by that?
I just don't. Okay, I'll back up. Yes, I might use a tool or two that would, if it would be useful to me.
I'd be interested in using it just to see, I think, and he even made the point, when he asked people how often were they, well, he was asking about porn, but people's estimates of how often and how long they were using some of the stuff was way off. Actually, they were overestimating.
Yes.
How much they really used. Although I also think that if you ask people, if people know they're being monitored, it might change their behavior. But I would be interested in just finding out whether my actual behavior matches what I think it does.
Yeah, that's why I said, well, I could totally see there being a some sort of if there having a way to do data and track data and then make and use it to my own benefit, I think could be useful, but it would just have to be really good.
Well, so I think this is a whole area of richness that is being explored, but certainly isn't tapped out.
Fitness trackers, right?
Yeah, and it's the same thing.
Opening for
so I think people are very interested in using technology to track their own body, mind, activity, and bring transparency to what's going on in their life. And I think any apps or any technology that lets you do that is extremely popular, and it probably will continue for a while, like you said, as long as it's good. I don't know, it's a very interesting question about what changes if you know those things. And also, the next step, which would be, instead of just giving you the information, as we move into these two-way brain-computer interfaces, right, where you can affect the brain or behavior, that'll be interesting. So not just does it tell you when you've been on Facebook too long, but does it actually, does something change in your brain, right? Mm-hmm. That's the future. I'm also interested in. But certainly this idea of making transparent your own behavior and your own physiology, I think is going to just increase in popularity. So, we should develop something. It'd be great to develop. No, so I'm really serious. I'm always wanting to do this, right?
Hey, I think I would definitely. We just need a couple $1 million.
And some really smart engineers.
Yeah.
So if there is anyone out there listening who has a spare couple of $1 million and spare really good engineers, just call us up. They email us and tell us you want to work on stuff. No, but I'm really serious. I'd love to, for instance, I'm very interested in mental states. It would be really interesting to. There are many devices that'll kind of put you in a meditative state kind of thing. But it would be interesting to track that and notice when you're in a relaxed state versus a concentrating, active prefrontal cortex state. Anyway, that's really interesting stuff, I think. All right, so we talked about Gabe, and we talked about Nir, and we talked about Saad. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I really liked about the conference, and Nir mentioned that he has what's called the 50-50 pledge, which is he pledges that half of the speakers at the conference will be women and half will be men. And
he's fulfilled that pledge.
I think that's wonderful. And you had commented to me when he said that there have been times when we've been at a venue where I'm speaking and, I'm the only woman, or maybe there's 2 women out of, 10 speakers. So that was really nice. So let's talk about some of the women that were there, because so far we've just talked about the men. Well, we talked. I was there, obviously. Any of the women you wanna mention that were speaking?
You go for it.
Yeah, well, there were several that we can talk about. So, Nandini Stocker was there, Stocker. And she was at the dinner we were at the night before. And her talk was The Psychology of Designing Bots and Conversational User Interfaces. She's the conversation design lead at Google. And by this, we don't mean just how to have a good conversation. Her whole thing is voice interfaces.
Voice systems and voice interfaces.
Talking to your computer, and she's just got a really deep, rich background in that. Knows a lot about what works and what doesn't work. Didn't she at dinner? Didn't she show that one of the interesting? I don't know if it's a bug or not, but you don't have to say "Okay, Google" to your phone. You can say "Okay, boo boo" or something. Didn't she show that it was responding to other things besides the word Google? All right, so poor Nandini, she did this wonderful talk, and now I'm just talking about one little silly thing she did at dinner. But I've always been fascinated with voice interfaces for a long, long time. And so I was kind of interested in, her take on where things are at. And, she, I think, feels somewhat the way I feel, which is there's the engineering part of making,
which is obviously, especially Google, is a big part.
Yeah, which of making interface,
and it's amazing. They've done the amount, the quality of it, of the voice recognition part is really, really great.
It's all of that has been improving greatly, and it took a really long time. I mean, really, because I've been, and she even, I think she's younger than me, I believe, but she even said how long she's been waiting for this, and I've been waiting for it even longer. And we had the idea of talking to our computers all the way back, probably when probably really got popular, this idea of it, when the original Star Trek series started, which was, when was that? Like in the 1970s, maybe?
Yeah.
Because
I mean, people were talking to robots for forever. The idea that a robot, that a computer, the idea that basically a robot isn't a robot, it's just like a computer on wheels. I think that happened earlier, but or
this,
like later. Sorry.
But well, just that that it's going to be like like I can talk to Alexa now.
You have an Alexa.
Uh-oh. I just said the word Alexa, and Alexa's in the room.
It's scary.
And she might answer. Yeah, I have an Alexa now. And it's interesting to have one. And I was talking to a student in one of my classes. I teach a class at University of Wisconsin, and she has one also. And we were talking about the fact of as soon as you get it, like within a day or two, this tendency you have after you ask a question and she answers, to say thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't have that tendency when I'm in front of my desktop or my laptop or my phone or my tablet. But you have that tendency. But so we've come a really long way, in this, but it took a very, very long time. And Nandini's talk, part of what she talked about was we just don't realize all the assumptions when we have conversations with people, all the context of the conversation, I'm just all the, so, I mean, it took a long time to be able to deal with the algorithms of, if you say something like next Tuesday, and the context of how when we have a conversation with another person, all that context is just, understood. And that's been tough to program in.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was an interesting talk. So that was Nandini Stalker.
She's going to be talking at Google I/O in a couple months. And they have
the conference. Yeah, she is. She works at Google.
What else was going on? There were a lot of very I had a lot of very good female speakers there.
Anyone else you want to mention?
I'm letting you.
You're letting me.
I'm letting you
talk
take
about
the wheel.
Women. Okay, I'll mention Irene. It really bothers me that I don't know how to pronounce anybody's name that was at this conference. Irene is at Khosla Ventures, Khosla, and she used to be head of design at Google, and she used to be head of design at Yahoo, and she used to be head of design at Udacity. So she's got a pretty interesting resume. And she talked about design in general, I guess, I would say. She was talking about like Coco Chanel, who I know, Guthrie, being the titan of being so knowledgeable about women's clothing fashions.
It sounds like you.
No, I was talking about you.
Oh.
Neither of us is knowledgeable about women's clothing fashions. Right?
I mean,
we're not. I'm not.
Yeah.
But she did mention, and there's something I actually hadn't thought about, so Coco Chanel, who I guess kind of revolutionized the women's clothing back in the 1950s, 1940s, 1950s, 1960s.
You are so over. We are in such deep water right now.
But But I want to mention this because I hadn't thought about this. But before, all right, you may not know this, but any woman over the age of 30 is probably going to be familiar with the phrase "the little black dress."
No, everyone is familiar with that
They
phrase. Yes.
Okay.
That's not.
The idea that, in your wardrobe you must have the very simple but elegant black dress.
That's not new.
That's from Coco Chanel. Because
Yes.
before...
I mean, I know that.
Okay. Because before then, women tended to wear complicated and, frilly and so she kind of freed up that idea, and it's a minimalist design idea, which Irene was kind of tying into not just clothing design, but then product design. And so I thought that was she's a very good speaker. It was a very well crafted talk with video and lots of great photos. And of course, I'm sitting there, evaluating everybody's slides.
Right.
And you and I have a disagreement about slides for conferences. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah. All right. Anything else about the conference that you want to bring up? Anything that you thought was memorable about the conference in general?
It's so interesting because the whole behavioral economics thing is just it's getting so hot right now.
Yeah.
So hot right now.
Yeah.
And
it
is. That's a good thing.
And I want to do a little plug here for all the wonderful people who came to our workshops. So we had 2 half-day workshops, one right after another, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, with same workshop, different people. We had, 85 people in each one?
Yes. Yeah.
Just amazing. Just amazing. And smart. These are product designers and product managers.
That might have been the biggest workshop I think we may have given.
No, long time ago, I used to do workshops with 100 people in them. But recently, that's the biggest we've given.
Biggest
and
I've been in, yeah.
People were really, amazing questions.
And it was a very crammed day because it was 2 half days in one. So you either started with Nir, we started with you.
Yeah, if you went to Nir's workshop in the morning and then you came to us in the afternoon.
You're getting your money's worth of information.
Oh, I think their brains had to have been aching. But everyone did a really good job. I mean, they were all engaged and, still with me at the, end of the day when they'd been in workshops all day. And I thought everyone was really good. So I just want to say if you're listening and you were at our workshop, thank you. We enjoyed doing the workshops. So, yeah, it's a good conference. Now, Nir has just now moved to New York. He moved like 3 days after the conference, but he says he's still going to put it on in San Francisco area next year. So if you guys are listening, you should look for it. I think it's a good conference. And I don't know if we're going to be back as a speaker or anything, but even if we're not, someone could still go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Guthrie, any again, I'll put you on the spot here. Do you have any, when you go to conferences like that, do you come away with any, takeaways, something you're going to work on or do differently, or?
I think it just generally enhances my understanding and information.
Yeah. So you didn't come away saying, okay, here's what I want to work on as a result of having been at the conference.
I don't know. I didn't go in with that desire.
Well, I don't go in with it, but I always get ideas when I come out.
Yeah, like I said, I got ideas,
Okay.
but I don't know. I mean, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
But I wasn't looking to change my life or the way I do things.
Well, I'm never looking to do that, but I always come away with, I have a list, which of course I'm going to share with you before too long, because you're involved in making some of these things happen.
Right.
So I hate to tell you, but I do have a list, so you'll get to hear about my list in the next couple of days. So that's what we did in our next, and we have a whole bunch of conferences coming up. I don't know when people are listening to this, but we're going to be in Ann Arbor in just short of 2 weeks, and
we're doing a bunch of stuff in Sweden.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this in real time, so these things haven't happened in the past, the User Internet Experience Conference, Ann Arbor, Michigan, on April 20. What's the date?
4th?
That's right.
I think it's
24th and 25th. We're doing a half day
It kind of
workshop.
doesn't matter. It's Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, half day workshop, and we're doing a keynote. So if you're in the Ann Arbor area or you want to come visit with us, it's a small conference. It's not huge, but it's a really nice one. I've been there before, not for a couple of years. And then we're going to be in Sweden. Any of you who are listening over there, we're doing 3 workshops in 3 different cities.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be in Paris, doing a talk at a conference there. So lots of opportunities to come meet with us, which we always like meeting people. So show up at one of these, right?
That's right.
All right, Guthrie, we've managed to while away another hour, as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not going to do the opening thing about and with me,
I
does that mean you're not going to do the closing thing? Guthrie, where can people reach us?
info@theteamw.com, or just go to theteamw.com.
Yeah.
That's where we have all of our things and stuff and things. Cool stuff. And,
thanks Guthrie, and thanks everyone for listening.
And we will talk to you soon. When are we going to talk to everyone?
Next week.
Next week?
Sure.
Well, we'll try. Yeah, and I hope everyone has a really, really, really great week. Thank you, Susan.
Bye.
Bye.